On the day YNW Juvy and YNW Sakchaser sadly passed, YNW Melly admitted to doing the act towards them via Instagram DMs. As reported by Complex, they stated a new piece of evidence saying, and I quote, "There is one Instagram exchange that took place hours after the passings, which was obtained by Complex via a public records request. In it, YNW Melly's Instagram account says, 'I did that,' in one message, followed by another one 2 minutes later saying, 'Shh.' Now the time of these Instagram DMs will be used by the state to make the case that those messages amount to an admission by YNW Melly of his guilt. Not long afterwards, the recipient of those messages tells YNW Melly it's a Sig 9 on the market, meaning the state will likely claim a Sig 9 is a firearm, as YNW Melly replied to his message saying, 'I want it.' Now law enforcement will investigate the scene of the crime. Using the shells from the firearm that was left on the pavement, they're gonna see if it matches up to what is claimed to be a Sig 9. To go along with that evidence, the lead detective on this court case recently said in a deposition that YNW Sakchaser was set to receive $200,000 from his record label. Now the police attempted to subpoena 300 Entertainment during their investigation in order to investigate this possible paycheck, but the detective explained that the company, or known as the record label, refused to honor their subpoena. YNW Sakchaser's mother, Jana Thompson, expanded on the $200,000 payment in a March 2022 deposition. Though she specified that she didn't know exactly who the alleged payment was from or who it was for, she said that her son reached out to her a few days before he passed. She says, and I quote, "My son hysterically called me. She said he was very concerned about my whereabouts. He was concerned about his sister's whereabouts. He's concerned like something is gonna happen to us. And he told me that he was not gonna get his money." As she continued saying, he said, "I'm probably not gonna get my 200 grand. I'm probably not even gonna get my money, ma." As YNW Sakchaser in this moment was very concerned that something was about to happen to him, and that he kind of knew inside that this $200,000 payment from his record label, or whoever it was from, was not gonna eventually go through. So around the time of YNW Sakchaser's passing, his music career was just starting to take flight. Having meetings with record labels, he was in the middle of dropping hit songs such as Tropical and Backend. Now these two songs got the attention of YNW Melly and his music label. Now according to records, they claim that YNW Melly did the act towards YNW Sakchaser, so then they would avoid paying the 200 grand for him to join his record label. So if this turns out to be true, YNW Melly will then be eligible for the penalty, as he used money as a motive for doing the act. Now this explains why the prosecutors are no longer interested in putting YNW Melly behind bars for life anymore. As they stated, they want the penalty against Melly. The parents of YNW Juvy and YNW Sakchaser want justice for what happened to their boys. It's interesting how all of these pieces are now starting to get put together. YNW Sakchaser's mother spoke out about her son's situation with Melly. Now we see YNW Melly's lawyers ask Sakchaser's mother this question: "I would like you to tell me what information you have gathered to show that this felony was committed for a pecuniary gain." With Sakchaser's mother's lawyers replying, "Please tell me what your definition of pecuniary gain is." With YNW Melly's lawyers replying, "By statute, it means he committed this crime to make money, or what have you." With Sakchaser's lawyers replying, "Well, there was, and you know, through a search warrant through Facebook, as well as through Jana Thompson's testimony, there was money that was being brought to, or was going to be awarded to Anthony Williams, aka YNW Sakchaser. Mr. Williams was supposed to get around $200,000, and you know, that was in text messages, and also I believe in Facebook messaging, as well as the mother's testimony that money apparently apparently was never obtained by Mr. Williams, with Melly's lawyers replying, "Okay, do you know who was allegedly going to pay that $200,000 to Mr. Williams?" With them replying, "Well, I mean, I believe it was gonna go through the record label. How it's paid out, I don't know." Now, YNW Melly had a court hearing at the beginning of March. As seen from this photo, YNW Melly didn't really look like YNW Melly anymore. From witnesses that were in the courtroom, YNW Melly allegedly seemed very nervous, twitchy, and kept playing with his hands. YNW Melly in court at this hearing was being told his case was going to be pushed back to May 23rd. But just recently, the trial has actually began as the jury is now being selected. Even though the jury is still being selected, the official court trial where YNW Melly will be sentencing will not be starting until roughly May 23rd. Now, it's going to take until May 23rd as the prosecutors gave the judge and YNW Melly's lawyers 66 pages of new evidence. Now, this evidence booklet featured GPS evidence, ballistics evidence, and even a confession video from YNW Melly. Now, fast forward to March 17th, the prosecutors then dropped another 178 pages of evidence against Melly, with this evidence booklet featuring evidence from witnesses, YNW Sakchaser's parents, as well as Instagram and Facebook DMs. Now, in these new pages of evidence, they're claiming that after running ballistics reports, all signs of who did the act towards Juvy and Sakchaser were sitting directly where YNW Melly was in the car. So here's the photo of where everyone was sitting. YNW Bortlen, being the driver of the vehicle on this day, had YNW Melly sitting directly behind him. That then leaves YNW Juvy and YNW Sakchaser both sitting on the opposite side of the vehicle. When YNW Juvy and Sakchaser were finally brought to the hospital for medical attention, an exam was done by doctors. This then gave prosecutors and law enforcement a clear detail on where they were affected by a firearm. So this made it very easy for them to use what's called the stick method, where law enforcement would basically sit where YNW Melly was in the vehicle and then use plastic sticks to match the trajectory of where a firearm would have been used from his seat, as these long plastic sticks obviously just go in a straight line. Now, the trajectory from YNW Melly's seat shows a perfect match to where YNW Sakchaser and Juvy were affected. Also, in the evidence reports, it claims that once the act was done inside of the car, YNW Melly stepped out of the vehicle and started using his firearm around the car to make it appear as if a drive-by just occurred. Now, law enforcement knows that this happened due to using YNW Melly's cell phone as a GPS tracking device, as law enforcement has been working with T-Mobile to track YNW Melly's whereabouts even a few years prior. They noticed that around the time they believe the act happened, that YNW Melly, with his phone in his pocket, stepped out of his vehicle and started walking around his car in a 360-degree motion in a very weird way. It was also strange as YNW Bortlen finally drove Juvy and Sakchaser to get medical attention 40 minutes after it went down. Meanwhile, YNW Melly sprinted home on foot instead of going with his two best friends to the hospital, even in a very serious situation like this. Now, if you want more information regarding YNW Melly and his case, make sure you subscribe. Anyways, I'm out. Peace.